Dilek Tuna and you're watching A News. Let's see the top stories this hour. President Donald Trump signals a possible deal with Iran amid ongoing talks and Strait of Hormuz tensions. Israel airstrikes hit southern Beirut for the first time since last month's ceasefire. And Russia warns diplomatic missions to evacuate staff ahead of possible strike on Ukraine. Diplomatic efforts between the United States and Iran are continuing as tensions remain high over the conflict and Tehran's nuclear program. The latest remarks from Washington have added fresh attention to the possibility of a breakthrough in the talks.
US President Donald Trump said on Wednesday he expects the war in Iran to end quickly as the United States seeks a deal over Tehran's nuclear program and the Strait of Hormuz. He also said that the US had held very good talks with Iran over the previous 24 hours, adding that a deal between the two sides was very possible.
All of a sudden, no, they want to make a deal badly, and we'll see if we get there. If we get there, they can't have nuclear weapons. You know, it's very simple, but what's not to submit? So they had a Navy with 159 ships, and now every ship is blown to pieces and lying at the bottom of the water. They had an Air Force, lots of planes, and they don't have any planes. They don't have any anti-aircraft. They don't have any radar left. Their missiles are mostly decimated. They have some. They have probably 18, 19%, but not a lot by comparison to what they had. And their leaders are all dead. So I think we won.
His comments came as reports emerged from US media that Washington and Tehran could be nearing a one-page deal to end their war. The memo reportedly has 14 points and, according to US news outlet Axios, could serve as the basis for wider nuclear talks. The measures under discussion include suspending Iran's uranium enrichment, lifting sanctions and restoring free transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian officials say the proposal is still being reviewed. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghei said Tehran will study the offer carefully before responding through Pakistani mediators. Senior Iranian lawmakers also warned that Iran is ready to respond if tensions rise further, unless the United States makes major concessions. Despite ongoing talks, President Trump warned military action could resume at a much higher intensity if negotiations fail. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister says Israel remains in full coordination with Washington, adding that he speaks with President Trump almost daily and that both leaders agree all enriched uranium must be removed from Iran.
We share common objectives, and the most important objective is the removal of enriched material from Iran, all of the enriched material, and the dismantling of Iran's enrichment capabilities. President Trump believes he can achieve this one way or another. However, we are prepared for any scenario. And that is the directive I have given to the IDF and our security agencies as well. Israel is stronger than ever. Iran and its proxies are weaker than ever.
In the meantime, oil markets remain highly sensitive to developments between Washington and Tehran, with any rise in tensions around the Strait of Hormuz likely to push energy prices higher and add pressure to the global economy.
The United States and Iran appear to be moving closer to a potential breakthrough amid ongoing regional tensions, with negotiations raising hopes of de-escalation, while leaving several possible scenarios still on the table. Obey Shabanda has more.
President Trump has declared that he's pausing Project Freedom, which was meant to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for a short period. His negotiations with Iran, according to the U.S. president, have shown, quote, great progress. Senior U.S. officials have revealed on Wednesday that U.S. demands on Iran will include a 20-year enrichment ban on nuclear material and a ban on all underground nuclear work. The White House says that it is getting closer to an agreement with Iran, and that a one-page memorandum of understanding has been submitted to Tehran that could end the war and establish a framework for more detailed nuclear negotiations. The U.S. expects Iran to respond to the proposal in the coming days. The deal would have Iran commit to a moratorium on nuclear enrichment. In return, the U.S. would agree to lift sanctions and release billions of dollars of frozen funds. And both sides would lift restrictions on the transit of shipping vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. The one-page, 14-point memorandum of understanding is reportedly being negotiated between Trump's envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and several Iranian officials, both directly and through mediators. The MOU would declare an end to the war in the region and the start of a 30-day period of negotiations on a detailed agreement that would open the Strait of Hormuz and significantly limit Iran's nuclear program, as well as the lifting of sanctions. In other developments, a U.S. fighter jet fired on an Iranian-flagged oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman on Wednesday, disabling the rudder of the ship after it failed to comply with repeated warnings that it was violating the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, according to U.S. Central Command. I'm Ube Shabander, A News, Washington.
An Israeli airstrike has hit the southern suburbs of Beirut for the first time since last month's ceasefire, raising fresh concerns over the stability of the truce with Hezbollah. The escalation comes as tensions continue across the region despite ongoing diplomatic efforts to contain the conflict.
Tensions remain high across the Middle East as Israel continues its operations in Lebanon. Airstrikes hit southern Beirut on Wednesday, marking the first attack on the Lebanese capital since the ceasefire came into effect last month. The escalation comes amid wider diplomatic efforts to ease regional tensions, including ongoing US-Iran negotiations. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the target was a commander from the Radwan force, an elite unit of the group. In a joint statement with Defense Minister Israel Katz, he said the operation was intended to prevent future attacks on Israeli troops and communities. Israeli media report the commander was killed, though neither the Israeli military nor Hezbollah has confirmed his death. Earlier, Israel issued evacuation warnings for several villages north of the Litani River, raising concerns of a possible expansion of military operations deeper into Lebanese territory. Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salam says it is still too early for high-level talks, with diplomatic channels between the two sides remaining limited.
The United Nations is warning about the growing impact of renewed violence in Lebanon as Israeli strikes and evacuation orders continue to affect several parts of the country despite an existing ceasefire agreement.
Becca, we once again reiterate that civilians and civilian infrastructure must be respected and protected at all times. This is forcing further displacement of civilians already impacted by months of hostilities.
As battlefield tensions escalate across Ukraine, Russia has issued evacuation warnings to foreign embassies in Kyiv ahead of Victory Day.
Russia warned foreign embassies and international organizations in Kyiv on Wednesday to evacuate personnel, saying retaliatory strikes could target the Ukrainian capital if Victory Day events in Moscow are disrupted.
A note with the following content was sent to all diplomatic missions accredited with the Foreign Ministry and to representations of international organizations. I quote, "On May 4th, 2026, the Russian Defense Ministry issued an official statement in connection with threats by the Kyiv authorities to strike Moscow on a date sacred to all Russians, Victory Day in the Great Patriotic War." The Russian Foreign Ministry strongly urges the authorities of your country, the leadership of your organization, to treat this statement with the utmost responsibility and to ensure the advance evacuation from the city of Kiev of personnel of diplomatic and other missions, as well as citizens, in view of the inevitability of a retaliatory strike by the armed forces of the Russian Federation against Kiev, including centers of decision-making, should the Kiev regime attempt to carry out their criminal terrorist plans.
The warning comes as fighting continues despite rival ceasefire proposals linked to Russia's May 9th commemorations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian forces violated Kyiv's proposed truce more than 1,800 times within hours of it taking effect, with attacks continuing along the front line and in civilian areas. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha, meanwhile, accused Moscow of focusing on securing the parade rather than advancing peace efforts. As clashes intensified, a Russian strike hit a kindergarten in Ukraine's northeastern Sumy region, killing 2 people. Officials said no children were inside the building at the time of the attack. The United Nations Human Rights Monitoring Mission says Russian attacks across 14 Ukrainian regions since last Friday have killed at least 70 civilians and wounded more than 500 others. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry says its forces captured 2 settlements in the Donetsk and Sumy regions over the past 24 hours, while also carrying out strikes on Ukrainian military positions, drone facilities and energy infrastructure across 141 locations. Moscow further claimed its air defense systems intercepted 571 Ukrainian drones, while the Black Sea Fleet destroyed 4 unmanned boats. Ukraine's military, meanwhile, reported 177 clashes along frontline areas and said its forces targeted Russian command centers, assembly points and air defense systems.
Russia tightens its security before its biggest national celebration on the 9th of May, amid fears of Ukrainian drone strikes. Starting Tuesday, Russia has begun rolling mobile internet shutdowns in Moscow and other cities, which authorities say is to counter drone threats.
Mobile internet will be completely shut down in Moscow on May 9th, Russian Ministry of Digital Development reports. According to the ministry, temporary restrictions will be imposed on mobile internet in Moscow on Victory Day, including access to the whitelist of websites and SMS messages. The ministry stated that home internet and Wi-Fi will operate normally and that they do not plan to restrict access to mobile internet on May 7th to 8th. However, residents across Moscow already start to feel impact of restrictions on internet. On Tuesday, Russia shut down airports and temporarily cut mobile internet access for many users in Moscow. Local Russian media report that the disruption hit workers hardest, with taxi drivers saying they were unable to receive fares. By midday Tuesday, the Digital Development Ministry said that initial mobile internet restrictions in Moscow had ended and network operators were restoring access. The disruptions come as Moscow prepares for a significantly scaled-back Victory Day parade this weekend. Security in the Russian capital has been visibly tightened in the run-up to the parade, with checkpoints set up across the city and snipers and machine gun crews deployed on Kremlin towers. For the first time in nearly 20 years, the Red Square parade will not feature a display of military hardware. A decision the Kremlin says was made due to an increased risk of Ukrainian drone attacks on the Russian capital. On Monday, Ukraine launched a rare drone assault on Moscow, during which an unmanned aircraft slammed into a high-rise apartment complex not far from the Kremlin.
2 drones crossed into Latvia from Russian territory and crashed near the border on Thursday, triggering a NATO security response and emergency alerts for residents. Latvian Defence Minister Andris Spruds said the drones were likely launched by Ukraine toward targets in Russia before straying into Latvian airspace. NATO air policing jets were dispatched to the area. Authorities said 4 empty oil tanks were damaged in Rezekne near the Russian border, where suspected drone debris was found. Schools were closed and local residents were advised to stay indoors. Health authorities across Europe are monitoring passengers from a cruise ship linked to a deadly hantavirus outbreak. The vessel is now heading to Spain after several evacuations and 3 confirmed deaths.
The cruise ship MV Hondius, hit by a deadly hantavirus outbreak, has left waters off Cape Verde and is heading to Tenerife in Spain's Canary Islands. The vessel has nearly 150 people on board and is expected to arrive within 3 days. 3 people, a Dutch couple and a German national, have died during the outbreak. According to the World Health Organization, 8 people are suspected to have contracted the virus, with 3 confirmed through laboratory testing. Spanish authorities say the 14 Spanish passengers on board will be quarantined in a military hospital in Madrid for up to 45 days, depending on possible exposure to the virus. Other passengers without symptoms are expected to return to their home countries after the ship docks. 2 seriously ill passengers were evacuated from the vessel and flown towards Europe for specialist treatment. During the transfer, 1 aircraft carrying patients to the Netherlands was denied permission to refuel in Morocco. The plane was later redirected to Gran Canaria, where officials reported a problem with a patient's life support system while awaiting another aircraft. Health authorities are now investigating how the virus spread on board the ship, which began its voyage in Argentina and travelled through remote parts of the South Atlantic.
Lithuania and Poland say US troops should remain in Europe if Washington moves ahead with plans to reduce its military presence in Germany. The message came during a joint Lithuanian-Polish military exercise near the Suwalki Gap, a strategically sensitive NATO corridor between Russia and Belarus. Lithuania already hosts more than 1,000 US troops and is waiting for the full deployment of a 5,000-strong German brigade by the end of 2027. Poland also says it is ready to receive American soldiers if they are relocated from Germany.
European security is indivisible. That is the foremost principle. We have an interest in ensuring that those troops who may potentially be withdrawn from Germany remain in Europe. And the second aspect, I suppose, is in which specific country they would be stationed. In Lithuania, we are prepared to receive as many allies as we are capable of hosting. And to that end, we are putting in place all the necessary infrastructure, both for exercises and for accommodation.
Should President Donald Trump, for any of the reasons that have been discussed and stated publicly, take the decision to reduce the component of United States troops in Germany, we in Poland are ready and willing to receive American soldiers. We have the infrastructure in place to do so, and it is in the interest of both Poland and Lithuania and of the Baltic states that the largest possible number of American troops should be stationed here.
Poland's Defence Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz says there can be no NATO without the United States, as Warsaw signalled its willingness to increase the presence of American troops in the country.
There is no NATO without the United States. If anyone today tries to imagine the North Atlantic Alliance functioning in such a way, it simply isn't possible. But there is also no US power without its participation in NATO.
Hundreds were arrested after deadly post-election violence erupted in India's eastern state of West Bengal, following the victory of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party in the regional election. Police said more than 200 criminal cases have been registered and 433 people arrested in connection with the unrest, which left at least 4 people dead. West Bengal has previously witnessed deadly post-election clashes, including violence after the 2021 state polls. A group of Australian women and children linked to Islamic State is returning from detention camps in Syria. Police say some adults could face arrest after arriving in the country.
Australian citizens linked to Islamic State are expected to arrive home on Thursday night after leaving detention camps in northeast Syria. 4 women and 9 children are believed to be travelling on flights to Sydney and Melbourne via Qatar, according to Australian media reports. The Australian government says it is not assisting their return. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke said there are legal limits on preventing Australian citizens from re-entering the country, even in cases linked to extremist organisations. However, they can face arrest upon arrival.
Fantastic, thank you. I will not flag how many individuals will be arrested or when they will be arrested to protect a number of our investigations. However, I will confirm these points. Some individuals will be arrested and charged. Some will face continued investigations when they arrive in Australia. And children who return in the cohort will be asked to undergo community integration programs, therapeutic support, and countering violent extremism programs.
Many of the women travelled to Syria between 2012 and 2016 to join husbands who had allegedly become members of Islamic State. After the collapse of the group's self-declared caliphate in 2019, many relatives of suspected fighters were detained in camps including Al-Hol and Roj near the Iraqi border, while some had returned home. Australian media say fewer than 1,000 families now remain in the camps in northeast Syria.
ASEAN foreign ministers have met in the Philippines ahead of the 48th Leaders Summit, with the Middle East conflict high on the agenda. The talks were held in Cebu under the Philippines ASEAN chairmanship. Manila said the conflict has disrupted energy flows, trade routes and food supply chains, while putting ASEAN nationals in the Middle East at risk. Talks are also expected to cover the South China Sea Code of Conduct, as tensions between Manila and Beijing have grown, but expectations for progress remain low.
In the implementation of the 5-point.
Iran is calling on FIFA to ensure equal access for all teams ahead of the World Cup in the United States, Canada and Mexico. The comments come after members of Iran's Football Federation were reportedly turned back at the Canadian border last week, while Federation President Mehdi Taj has had his visa cancelled over alleged links to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
We will
make every effort. Look, our national football team is not traveling to the United States. Rather, we are going there to take part in the FIFA World Cup. Therefore, it is FIFA's responsibility to provide all the necessary facilities and conditions. Host governments also have a very clear obligation under FIFA regulations to provide the necessary arrangements and issue the required visas without taking political considerations or motives into account. We hope that FIFA, if only for the sake of preserving its own credibility, will certainly take the necessary measures.
A US federal judge has released what is described as a handwritten suicide note, allegedly written by the late financier Jeffrey Epstein. The document made public on Wednesday includes a line suggesting it is a treat to be able to choose one's time to say goodbye, though officials have not verified its authenticity. The note is said to have been discovered in 2019 by Epstein's former jail cellmate and was released following a court request by the New York Times. Epstein was found dead in a Manhattan jail cell in August 2019, with authorities ruling his death as a suicide, while he was awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges involving minors. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue analysing the latest diplomatic developments between the United States and Iran and what they could mean for regional stability. Stay tuned.
The global defense industry plays a vital role in ensuring national security. In Turkey, companies in the sector strengthen domestic production and enhance military independence.
ISA-based radar, Murat radar. This is fully digital radar. This is new for world. Aselsan today, Turkish technology leader and global technology provider.
I'm Nuray Mustafa. This is One on One.
Welcome back to A News. The United States and Iran appear to be moving closer toward an agreement that could bring an end to weeks of escalating conflict and regional uncertainty. A round of diplomacy comes after intense military exchanges that raised fears of a wider war and threatened stability across the Middle East, particularly around the strategically critical Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, questions are emerging over whether the United States and Israel have achieved their original objectives, especially as Israeli strikes continue in Lebanon despite an existing ceasefire arrangement, including fresh attacks on Beirut. To discuss latest developments and what they may signal for the region, we're joined by our guest, Basel Duik. He's a Middle East researcher at ACLED, Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project from Lisbon, Portugal. Basel, welcome to the program.
Hello, Dilek. Thank you for having me here.
Now, we're hearing from both Axios and Reuters that momentum is building toward a deal. What appears to have shifted behind the scenes to make this possible now?
Well, I think this is the 9th time that Axios says that an imminent deal between Iran and the US is there, and that the Iranian and American negotiators are coming to a point of a point that can actually bring them together. But I would like to say something, that a lot of people are making money from this. We've seen that throughout the stock market, a lot of people were selling short the crude oil. That made them a lot of money 70 minutes before the Axios report came out. So there is some kind of a deal coming together between Iran and the US, but I would say there is also things happening behind the scenes where a lot of people in this administration and in that administration are making money out of it. What has happened is that Trump has realized that the war against Iran was a strategic mistake, that he was pushed into this war by the Israelis, that he was gaslighted by the Israelis. We remember to the start of the war that Trump was saying to regional leaders and to international leaders that this war will end in a couple of days. It only needs 100 hours and the IRGC will collapse. And that was not the case. Iran is more of a formidable force. It has been able to attack Gulf states, it has been able to attack Israel, and it has been able to push the Trump administration into a corner that has it dealing now with an internal pressure, increasing fuel prices, and elections that are coming in November. So that's what's happening.
And Basel, Pakistani sources reportedly confirmed that an agreement could be imminent. Well, this time round, as you said, we've heard it all before, and it's the 9th round now. What role has Pakistan played in facilitating or supporting these efforts, and why do they think that an agreement might be closer this time round?
Well, I think Pakistan is an excellent negotiator between these two entities. We know that Iran does not trust the US. We know that the US does not trust Iran. And there is the player here, the wild card here, which is Israel. So Pakistan is trying to play a role to mediate between these two entities that are extremely disaligned, they're unaligned, they're completely talking about different material when it comes to negotiations. The US is talking about pre-war conditions, while Iran is talking about controlling the strait indefinitely. However, both sides know that the status quo cannot continue. It is not a conflict, but it is a conflict at the same time, because it's more of a war of attrition that is making the world pay a high price. So Pakistan knows that if this status quo goes on, it will pay a high price. The US will pay a high price, Iran and the entire world. So a resolution should take place in the time being, and this is what the Pakistanis are trying to do. However, I want to note on something, that within Iran, there are hardliners that believe that Pakistan is only buying time for the US to actually get into another round of airstrikes against the country. So these hardliners believe that Pakistan are more aligned with the US than actually with Iran. They are not genuine enough. They cannot be trusted enough. But this is a continuous pattern that we've been seeing with negotiators from Iran between these hardliners that are controlling Iran and more of people that are reformists that want to change that status quo and actually reconcile with their neighbors.
Okay. Now, even as talk of an agreement grows, Bassel, military operations and threats have continued. How do you analyse this diplomacy and escalation happening simultaneously? Is this common?
Well, it is part of an actual strategy, actually. We've seen back in June 2025 when the US and Israel attacked Iran. It was also part of the same strategy. The same strategy also happened when in the start of this war, when it first started. There were a round of negotiations between Iran and the US, and then it ended with the US and Israel attacking Iran with a massive aerial bombardment campaign. So this is part of a broader strategy. The US is telling Iran that we can go back to fighting, we can bomb you, we can wipe out your power plants, we can actually resume an aerial campaign against you, but we also have another option, and that option is if you come to the table, if you give in to our demands, if you stop nuclear enrichment, if you give us all the enriched uranium, and if you stop your ballistic missile program. And that's why I say the US is still negotiating with pre-war conditions, because Iran will not give any of these, and they are ready to go back to fighting. Is Iran being more? Has Iran been damaged throughout the war? Definitely. Has a lot of its military installations and infrastructure been wiped out? Definitely. But Iran has the strategic depth to bear more than the US and Israel combined.
And so from Tehran's perspective, what would Iran need to secure politically or strategically in order to present this agreement domestically as a success?
So I think by the end of this war, if this war ends with a resolution, I would say that the US will try to sell it to their base as a victory, Israel the same, and Iran the same. But what Iran wants to get out of this is mainly the big demand, and I'm not sure if this can be actually achieved, which is a full US military withdrawal from the Middle East. Other than that is the control of the Strait of Hormuz, which is the center of gravity of this conflict. We still do not actually know what a resolution regarding the strait will be in the future, because we've been seeing that Iran is still attacking vessels. Oil is not coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, and this will reflect in a supply shock in the coming months in the world. So what Iran wants to say is that Iran only needs one thing: the continuous US-Israeli pressure that did not bring regime change in Iran is a success for Iran, regardless of all the things I've said before.
Okay. And how are regional actors, particularly Israel and Gulf states, likely viewing the prospect of a US-Iran agreement?
Well, the most hostile country against Iran is the United Arab Emirates. The UAE believes that the Iranian leadership, as it is right now, shall not stay because it's hostile against the UAE. They feel that they have trusted Iran, that they gave Iran a lot of financial help, a lot of transactional help when it comes to transactions because of all of the sanctions that have happened against Iran since the 2000s. But they feel that they were betrayed by the Iranians because they were the most country attacked in this war. But we can actually dissect the Gulf countries because Saudi Arabia views this differently. Saudi Arabia wants this to be resolved, wants this to end, especially also Qatar, Kuwait, because all of these countries are actually have a logistical issue when it comes to the production and export of oil and gas, and will have a fiscal issue in the future if this continues to drag on. Is the UAE in a similar position? Yes, but UAE is more aligned towards Israel, which have other goals when it comes to Iran, which is mainly the change in the Iranian leadership, the fall of the IRGC.
Okay. Now, I want to move on, actually. I'm just mindful of the time. This is a question that I really wanted to ask. At the same time, Israel continues to conduct strikes in Lebanon, despite the ceasefire there, including recent attacks on Beirut. Does this suggest that even if the US and Iran move toward de-escalation, the wider region may remain unstable?
Yes, I agree with that, especially in Lebanon. Lebanon is a special case because Israel is trying to decouple the two conflicts. The Lebanese government is trying to decouple the two conflicts. And that's why we're seeing a push for peace negotiations between Israel and Lebanon, regardless of what Hezbollah is doing in the south of the country. But at the same time, we have the wild player here, which is Hezbollah, which is trying and continuously trying to couple the conflict between Iran and the US and between Lebanon and Israel. And this is why a move towards peace between Iran and the US does not guarantee a move towards peace between Lebanon and Israel.
Bassel, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your analysis today.
Thank you, Dilek. Thank you.
And now, after the break, we'll look at the key stories shaping the region.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome back to A News, and now we turn to our regional stories. A new shipment from Russia to Armenia has been transferred via transit through Azerbaijan, marking the first transportation of aluminium products along this route. 2 wagons carrying aluminium products with a combined weight of 133 tonnes are currently being transported in transit through Azerbaijani territory. In addition, 10 rail wagons loaded with grain cargo weighing a total of 700 tonnes were dispatched. The wagons departed from Bilajari station and are heading toward Büyükkesik. So far, more than 26,000 tonnes of grain have been sent from Russia to Armenia via transit through Azerbaijan. Turkey's defence industry is seeing fresh export momentum, with Ankara announcing more than $2.8 billion in defence and aviation exports in the first 4 months of 2026. Here are the details.
The defence sector is again in the spotlight here in Turkey, where Trade Minister Omar Bolat announced Wednesday that Turkish defence and aviation exports topped $2.8 billion in the first 4 months of 2026. The figure marks a 28% increase on the same period last year, highlighting Ankara's growing ambition to turn its defence industry into a major export engine. And the Saha 2026 defence exhibition, now underway in Istanbul, is providing the stage for that push. At the exhibition on Wednesday, Turkey and Kenya signed a major defense cooperation agreement. Aimed at enhancing bilateral defense ties, the deal was signed by Turkish Defense Minister Yaşar Güler and his Kenyan counterpart, Rosalinda Soypan Tuya. The same day also saw a major development for Turkish drone manufacturer Baykar. The company signed its first export agreement for its Bayraktar Kızıl Elma unmanned aerial vehicle with Indonesia's PT Republic Aero Digantara. The deal covers a 12-drone squadron scheduled for delivery in 2028, with options for additional aircraft and local production facilities in Indonesia. Taken together, the announcements show how Turkey is combining defense diplomacy, export growth, and advanced drone technology to expand its global footprint. In recent years, Turkey has emerged as one of the world's leading producers of aerial drones, accounting for an estimated 65% of the global armed drone export market. Baykar alone controls roughly 60% of this market, having signed export agreements with 37 countries, both for its tactical TB2 Bayraktar platform and its high-altitude Akinci-class drones. This is Adamaro for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
The second day of Saha Expo in 2026 is underway in Istanbul, showcasing the latest innovations in Turkish defence and aerospace. With $8 billion in new contracts expected, the event highlights Turkey's growing self-sufficiency and global export reach. Our correspondent Nuray Mustafa has more.
The second day of the Saha Expo 2026 exhibition held in Istanbul continues with events and presentation in the fields of defense, aviation and space. The exhibition is attracting significant international interest. According to official information, Turkey expects approximately $8 billion worth of the contracts to be signed at the event. The country currently exports more than 230 products to 185 countries. The Saha Expo has grown considerably since 2018. At that time, there were 180 companies, whereas today the event is much larger. This year, around 200 delegations are participating. The exhibition is organized according to the Green Corridor principle. Major companies are positioned in central areas while their partner firms are located around them. Saha Istanbul has more than 1,300 members. The organization plays an important role in strengthening industrial cooperation. Over the past 20 years, local production in Turkey has increased significantly, exceeding 880%. The country now manufactures products across land, air, naval and space sectors. Turkey produces both major platforms and their components, exporting them abroad. Last year, export reached $10.5 billion.
%80'den fazla dışarıya bağımlı bir
We have transitioned from a defence industry that was over 80% dependent on foreign sources to one that today possesses more than 80% domestic and national capabilities. We are speaking of a sector with a turnover exceeding $20 billion, which as of last year realized $10.5 billion in exports. We are currently the world's 11th largest exporter, and we hope to rank among the top 10 in the short term. While the defense industry is undoubtedly vital for security, it is equally critical for an independent foreign policy. This sector contributes significantly to Turkey's overall independence, as a country cannot maintain an independent foreign policy without a self-sufficient defense industry.
The exhibition is also marked by several new innovations. The Uran 105mm self-propelled howitzer was presented for the first time. The system has been developed based on the engineering experience gained from the Boran howitzer. Boran system was previously used by the Turkish armed forces and was exported to Bangladesh in 2024. This marked Turkey's first ever howitzer export. The Uran system is more mobile and faster. It operates on a 4x4 platform, has a firing range of 18 km and is capable of firing 12 rounds per minute. There are the latest updates from the exhibition so far. Saha Expo 2026 continue on its second day with the new technologies, new contracts and expanding international cooperation. Nuray Mustafa, Abbas Hacıyev for A News, Istanbul, Turkey.
The defence partnership between Ankara and Baku is reaching new heights. Speaking exclusively to A News, Haluk Görgün, president of the Turkish Defence Industry Agency, detailed the expanding scope of their cooperation, highlighting a shift toward joint investments and long-term institutional growth.
We have new topics of discussion with Azerbaijan every day. We were joined at this exhibition by both the Minister of Defence Industry and the Deputy Defence Minister. Following the Minister's attendance at yesterday's opening ceremony, we held further high-level talks with the Deputy Defence Minister today. Our cooperation covers a vast range of issues, from modern security measures to the latest defence innovations. Our discussions focus on mutual development, joint investments, and the establishment of institutional processes between our two nations.
Turkey is reaffirming its commitment to lasting stability in the South Caucasus. Vice President Cevdet Yilmaz told journalists that Azerbaijan and Armenia have already made significant progress toward a final settlement, bringing the region closer to a diplomatic breakthrough.
We want to see peace in the South Caucasus. Armenia and Azerbaijan have made very significant progress in this regard, and we believe that peace is now within reach. With the establishment of this peace, the South Caucasus, a region of immense strategic importance, will play a new and distinct role on both the regional and global stage. In particular, the development of the Middle Corridor and the opening of the Zangezur Corridor will bring both enhanced security and greater prosperity to the entire region.
Prime Minister of Uzbekistan Abdullah Aripov arrived in Beijing on Wednesday for a two-day official visit to China. The visit comes amid a focus on cooperation between China and Uzbekistan across sectors including new energy, digital agriculture, green minerals, high technology and public health. The China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan railway project aimed at strengthening economic ties across Central Asia will also be discussed. China has remained one of Uzbekistan's top trading partners, with bilateral trade rising more than 35% in the first quarter of 2026 to over $4.1 billion US dollars. China's Belt and Road Initiative has posted its strongest year on record as Beijing expands its global energy and infrastructure footprint. Mahnur Maktoum has the details.
China's Belt and Road Initiative has just posted its strongest year on record. New deals under Beijing's global infrastructure program reached $213.5 billion in 2025, a 75% jump from the year before, according to research by Australia's Griffith University and Shanghai's Green Finance and Development Center. China has now logged $1.4 trillion in investment and construction contracts with 150 countries since the initiative launched in 2013. energy was the standout sector, accounting for 43% of total BRI engagement, and the figures reveal a striking contradiction. While investment in clean energy such as solar and wind grew, fossil fuel deals surged. Deals in fossil fuels jumped nearly threefold year-on-year to reach $71.5 billion, the highest proportion of fossil fuel engagement since 2014. Africa emerged as the top destination, with the headline deals including a $23 billion oil and gas development in the Republic of Congo and a $20 billion gas industrial park in Nigeria. Metals and mining also hit a record, reaching $32.6 billion, with roughly 60% of those deals concentrated in Kazakhstan, which holds reserves of 15 rare earth elements. The report's author says that the era of so-called small and beautiful BRI projects is now effectively over, with deal sizes reaching 2 or 3 times the levels of the past decades. Analysts say that the data reflects Beijing's push to lock in strategic resources and expand its economic footprint at a moment when US-led trade pressures are reshaping global supply chains. Manu Mukti, A News, Beijing.
Water and energy security are becoming some of the biggest challenges facing Central Asia. New forecasts warn the region could soon face severe shortages, forcing governments to look for long-term solutions. Our correspondent reports from Almaty.
Central Asia is moving closer to a major water and energy crisis. According to a report by the Eurasian Fund for Stabilization and Development, the region could face severe water shortages by 2040, while electricity demand is expected to double by 2050. Countries across the region are already facing winter electricity shortages and relying on expensive fuel imports, while water supplies from glaciers continue to decline as demand rises. The United Nations had also previously warned that water shortages in Central Asia could triple within the next 15 years. The situation is also being complicated by Afghanistan's Kosh-Tepe Canal project, which could divert up to a quarter of the annual flow of the Amu Darya River, increasing pressure on water supplies in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. And against this backdrop, regional officials met in Tashkent for another round of talks on the construction of the Kambarata 1 hydropower plant on the Naran River. The project is being described as a strategic step toward strengthening both energy and water security in Central Asia. According to estimates, the plant could generate around 6,000 gigawatt hours of electricity annually, equivalent to roughly 40% of Kyrgyzstan's current energy supply. And experts say the projects like this may become critical as the region faces growing pressure from climate change, rising consumption and declining water reserves. Fariza Kalimurdina, Almaty, A News.
And that's the news for this hour. Stay tuned to A News for more world news and all the latest updates.